Okay, Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola with you guys. And we got a hell of a show for you guys today. But don't we always? But you know what? Next Tuesday, an extravaganza. Always fun to do extravaganzas. I don't know if you even know about this.
Why would I?
Of course not. Why the hell would anybody tell Johnny Pie?
What is it?
Well, we do need pie there, so maybe that's why we should keep you in the loop.
Okay.
So the elections are beginning. They have come.
Yes.
They have come. So next Tuesday is the first primary, Arizona 8th Congressional District. And in the very first one, we have a Justice Democrat, Brianna Westbrook. So we will get to find out if the Justice Democrats proceed to the general election.
I have a cousin in Arizona named Brianna. I need to check.
Okay, I don't know. Anyway, she's gonna come on the day before onto Rebel headquarters, just check in with us, tell us how things are going. But we're gonna start that at 8:35 p.m. Eastern, right after Rebel headquarters next Tuesday. It's gonna go for hours and hours until until we have a result. I hope they count quick in Arizona. But we're gonna do a big show for you guys to kick off the election season. It begins next Tuesday night, so don't miss it. tytnetwork.com/live. And I will tell you this: of course, all of our election coverage members can get anytime they want. They can get it live, they can get it later. And tonight for the members, we've got a lot of stuff going on. We've got Rebel headquarters, we've got the post game where I am going to talk a little bit more about Russia.
I'm assuming that's by popular request.
No, it's I know a lot of people want it. No, I just have one quick note to make. It's not to re-engage in fights and stuff like that. I think I have solved the difference in perception, why I have a different perception than some other folks, okay? So I think that'll be a really interesting conversation. We'll save that for the members. tytnetwork.com/join. You'll also get old school tonight, and Adam Green's in town and from the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, and he's gonna be on old school tonight too, fan favorite. So everybody will enjoy that. tytnetwork.com/join. All right, I have more stuff for you, but let's get going because the first story is freaking awesome.
It turns out I have more stuff for you too, all this stuff, so let's jump into it. Yesterday, Kentucky House District 49 had a special election, and in it, Democrat Linda Belcher, a former public school teacher and state lawmaker, defeated Republican Rebecca Johnson 68% to 32%, which is a nice, healthy 36-point win, which is a lot. But it's even more dramatic than that, because it turns out that the last time around, Trump actually beat Hillary Clinton there in that same district 72% to 23%, which is, with my quick mental math, a 300-point swing in favor of the Democrats. It's not that bad, but it's a big swing.
All right, so let's do a bunch of fun things here, including math. So it is not apples to apples because she's in a race that against her opponent, and it was not it was not the same two people in the race earlier, and Trump and Hillary are not running purely in that district. You understand all that stuff. But nonetheless, if you take Trump's margin of victory versus now the Democratic candidate in that district's margin of victory, that is literally, I've never heard of it in covering politics for decades now, an 85-point swing. And that is not hyperbole. John's kidding about the 300%, obviously, but 85%. It's unreal, unprecedented. I don't know that there has ever been a larger swing in American history. Again, since it's not apples to apples, nobody would track that anyway. But that is unreal. Now, there are some caveats, but before we get to the caveats, also, and also a fun prediction. Now, I actually have been saying this for a while, but I'm gonna double down on it tonight. No one believes it, but it's true, it's gonna happen. In 2020, if the Democrats have a truly progressive candidate, which I believe they will win Kentucky in the national election, presidential election.
That's a very specific.
Yes, Kentucky will go blue, become the bluegrass state again, if you will. Okay, I've said this before as well, 42 states. if you have a Bernie Sanders-like candidate, I don't care if it's Trump, Pence, or anyone else, 42 states, including Kentucky. There, I said it.
What if they go against a charismatic candidate like a Ted Cruz? Okay, somebody in the audience has to write this down because that is a very specific, very verifiable prediction there. And hey, let's find out. There have been huge swings in elections. I mean, swings in elections, huge like landslides. That's the wave I'm trying to, the word I'm trying to come up with. Landslide. So it's possible. It's certainly possible.
Yeah, and look, sometimes my predictions are a little off. Like when I said Jeremy Corbyn would close a 24-point lead, and he only closed at 20 points in a month. So
I think you should have been fired over that terrible prediction.
All right.
Now let's do a couple of caveats. I've got sort of a specific caveat, and then I've got sort of a concern that maybe is a caveat. So the first is that Linda Belcher is not like brand new, fresh on the scene like some of the people running in these elections. Sorry, I've been up since 5:30. Some of the people running these elections that we've seen over the past year and a half. She actually represented that district from 2009 to 2012, and again from 2014 to January 2017 after being defeated in the 2016 election by a narrow margin. And actually the reason we're having this special election is that in December, then State Representative Dan Johnson, a Republican, took his own life after denying allegations that he had molested a 17-year-old girl at a church where he had served as a pastor. Linda Belcher defeated his widow. And what's interesting is that Linda Belcher originally ran for office after the tragic death of her own husband. And so a very unlikely situation there. There's a little bit of drama to it, although her win was both surprising and overwhelming. There are allegations that it's not legitimate. David Adams is the campaign manager for Republican Rebecca Johnson, who said the big story out of Bullitt County appears to be voter fraud.
Oh, come on.
And Rebecca Johnson said, I've heard from people all day long saying they went to vote for me at the correct polling place and were refused the opportunity to vote. It's like we were in a third world country. Which is not impossible. There are people who attempt to manipulate elections, certainly. There's misinformation spread. If they want to do an investigation to this, they should. It's extremely unlikely to actually overturn the results, but we want to make sure that people are confident in what happened, whether it's a national election or a state house level election like this.
Okay, so lots of things here. Number one, it is a well-known fact that the Russians would like Kentucky to turn blue. They're really gung-ho about Democrats at the state level. No, seriously, when we talk about voter fraud, who would do the voter fraud? In the case of Kentucky, Kentucky is controlled completely by Republicans at this point. So both legislatures are solidly Republican, and the governor, I would argue, is a right-wing lunatic. So why would all the Republicans conspire to make sure that a Democrat wins by a gigantic margin? It makes no sense whatsoever. The reality is the Republicans have become the new conspiracy theory party. So a solid chunk of the Republican Party believes in any conspiracy theory, and ironically, they don't believe in personal responsibility at all. You get your ass kicked in an election. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Yeah. It was the lizard people. It was someone else. By the way, to be fair, the Democrats have their own issues with that. It was the Russians. It was this. It was that. Okay, whether the Russians meddled or not, there are a lot of reasons why Hillary Clinton lost. So but at least they're not coming out with lizard people and like it makes no sense that a completely Republican-controlled Kentucky would fix an election for a Democrat.
MAGA works in mysterious ways.
Okay, so now look, I love the size of this victory, and by the way, let's do a little bit more celebration. It is the 37th state legislative pickup for the Democrats since Trump has gotten into office. So there is a little bit of a wave building there. That is a decent number of pickups. So let's do a little bit. Okay, all right, fine, enough. Okay, and I'll tell you.
The button.
Yeah, I know. But I'll tell you why that's plenty of celebration, because since 2009, the Democrats have lost 1,000 state legislative races, seats, I should say. They're minus 1,000 in that span of time, which is
3.7% back.
Yeah, which is unreal.
That sounds good.
It's amazing how good the Democrats are at losing. That's part of why I say they're paid to be losers. But here they coming back. And so now, is Belcher the most progressive candidate? hard to tell. She doesn't have a lot of positions on her website. She has good but benign positions like keep funding of the Bullitt County schools, support our working families, make sure that her county gets a share of the road and infrastructure funds. Oh, good. God bless, right? But not anything fire-breathing progressive positions. And you go, whoa, look at that! Oh my God, somebody running on Medicare for all, one in Kentucky, et cetera. So it's not that, okay? And she has won this seat before, so that margin of victory for Trump in that district is a little misleading applied to Belcher because she won before Trump. Now she wins after Trump. And she's running against apparently a little unhinged conspiracy theorist widow of a guy who was, troubled. Yes, let's put it that way. So there's plenty of caveats. There's still an 85-point swing.
So that's the final caveat I want to say is that I did as much research as I could to try to find out about Linda Belcher. I went on her social media, I looked at her Ballotpedia, Wikipedia, all that stuff, and there's not a lot of information, which is not, it's not suspicious about Linda Belcher. She is a state house representative. It's a very different sort of thing politically. They're not dealing with the national issues necessarily. It's more specific and specific to their district. But that's why, so we're gonna have our extravaganza over the beginning of the primary season. The primary season isn't just exciting in presidential elections, it is exciting and crucial literally right now because this sort of swing is happening and it's happened 37 times. And I think a lot of it is going to happen around strong progressive candidates. And I think the strong progressive candidates are gonna be the ones best suited to create these sorts of swings. But they are not exclusively the ones who are going to create it. It's one of the dangers of a strategy predicated on putting an absolute monster in office and hoping that that will inspire people. It will inspire people to not have a monster in office anymore. And so if the primaries go by and if we're not active and we allow a bunch of centrists to go through the primaries, I believe that the likely wave will probably put a wave of centrists in office. That's why we need to make sure that we don't do that and that we're active in the primaries. We make sure there are progressive candidates who win, go on into the general election, and then are riding that wave come November. Because otherwise, and again, this isn't Linda Belcher, she seems like a lovely person, I honestly don't know. But we wanna make sure that we get the right people, not just a lot of people.
Okay, last two super important points. One, I wanna just explain if you guys don't know, the primaries begin on February 27th. We will of course cover them live. We'll have a giant show for you guys at tytnetwork.com/live. Of course, you know the show is live every day, 6 to 8 p.m. there. But this will, and then you got Rebel Headquarters, which covers progressive news and candidates right afterwards for half an hour. And then at 8:35 that night, we start our coverage of the Arizona primary in the 8th congressional district there. It is the kickoff to the midterm elections. It begins next Tuesday, so don't miss a minute of it, it's gonna be great. Now, the last thing that's relevant to this story and to all those primaries. The reason the Democrats are winning these 37 seats, they won one last week in Florida, last month in Wisconsin, one that they weren't supposed to win, some giant swings in Oklahoma, et cetera, is because voter turnout is the most important thing. And that is not us, so there's the Democratic establishment that yells at progressives, it's your fault, you should turn out. No. But if you, I don't believe in that at all. But on the other hand, I also don't believe the establishment Democratic position, which is, well, we can flip Republicans in the suburbs, so let's go further right wing to try to get Republicans to vote for us. Never gonna work, doesn't work now, will never work. Just did a poll yesterday on the show, Donald Trump among Republicans is polling at 86%. They're not flipping, they're not interested in flipping, that's not what's happening. It's just that they're not that excited because, it turns out only the rich won under Donald Trump. It turns out he didn't do anything about swamp. So less of them vote. Democrats are excited to topple this Republican reign, so they show up to vote. So excite your voters. If you excite your voters, they will show up and you will win. By the way, there are a lot more Democrats than Republicans in the country. There are more registered Democrats on issues. The country's way more progressive. I can go into a dozen polls, et cetera. So all we gotta do is we gotta find exciting candidates, non-corrupted candidates, progressive candidates that inspire people to make the effort to go vote, and I think it'll make all the difference. Look, I think the just Democratic candidates are those guys, but I think there's also a ton of other progressives running in the country. I try to feature as many of them every night at 8 o'clock on Rebel Headquarters. So come check it out and make sure you learn the right lessons from elections like this, which is let's go get them. If you get up and vote, we're gonna rout them.
Agreed.
Okay, all right, what's next?
What's next is our first break, and then we're gonna have a couple of stories having to do with this conversation we're having finally as a country, having to do with guns. We've got some state representatives, or actually I should say representatives, facing pressure from their constituents. So we also have a little bit of perhaps bowing to that pressure from an unexpected source on the right after this break.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Lots of news to get to. Let me read the tweets real quick. Old Turk says, "Lean mean Adam Green tonight on Old School!" Exclamation point. Indeed. Check out Old School tonight. If you're a member, you can watch it live at around 9 o'clock Eastern. tytnetwork.com/join to become a member. Of course, I love this. Historically speaking, it says, "Just put my ballot in the mail today in Arizona District 8 for Brianna Westbrook." I love it. They're already voting.
That particular one, what do you know?
Okay.
Well, she's already one vote up.
And Aaron Shu says, I saved Cenk's prediction in my calendar. My phone will ring on Election Day 2020 with the message, Cenk, 42 states, Kentucky blue. Good luck, Cenk. I'll quote you later.
And
oh my God, if I'm right. Oh my God, if I'm right. Oh God. I don't even know if you guys want that because I will be unbearable.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I will be the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un bearable. Starting already.
I don't want it anymore.
Okay, all right.
You flipped me.
Oh, by the way, what a nice mug I have here. Can I take a? Oh, you can't see it at all. Look at the color.
It's brighter on the screen than.
Oh, okay. From aspiration.com. How very generous of them to give this to me. All right, we move forward. Okay. All right.
I've got one from Amazon.com.
No.
But you don't want that. Anyway,
we actually have a story about that later.
Okay, we've got some serious stuff. Oh yeah. Oh, that's true. I forgot about that. Okay, let's move back into the news. Today at the White House, Donald Trump and some of both the students and parents involved in the tragic shooting last week, as well as some others, were involved in a listening session, which is getting a lot of news and might lead to some action, although not necessarily the action that the students have been pushing for. We're gonna play some videos for you. Now, in this first video, you're gonna see student Samuel Zeif, who is going to push for what he thinks is necessary to make students safe based on his experience at that shooting. It's difficult footage, but we want you to watch this and then see how it's responded to by the president.
To feel like this ever, I can't feel comfortable in my country knowing that people will have, ever gonna feel like this. And I wanna feel safe at school. You know, senior year and junior year, they were big years for me when I turned my academics around, started connecting with teachers, and I started actually enjoying school. And now, I don't know how I'm ever gonna step foot on that place again, or go to a public park after school, or be walking anywhere. Me and my friends, we get scared when a car drives by. Anywhere. I don't understand. I turned 18 the day after. Woke up to the news that my best friend was gone. And I don't understand why I could still go in a store and buy a weapon of war, an AR. I was reading today that a person 20 years old walked into a store and bought an AR-15 in 5 minutes with an expired ID. How is it that easy to buy this type of weapon? How do we not stop this after Columbine, after Sandy Hook? I'm sitting with a mother that lost her son. It's still happening. In Australia, there was a shooting at a school in 1999. And, you know, after that, they took a lot of ideas, they put legislation together, and they stopped it. Can anyone here guess how many shootings there have been in the schools since then in Australia? 0. We need to do something, and that's why we're here.
Wow. Yeah, super powerful. I'm so glad someone finally said it. And, you know, God help us on what the Republicans are gonna say about the kid. But how would you react if you saw your best friend getting shot? And it's a great question, and it's a question the whole country's asking. Why are we letting people buy weapons of war? And let alone kids under 21. You can't buy a beer, but you could buy an assault weapon and murder 17 people in a school. Madness. So let's see how the president responds. Yeah, okay.
When the next one, the president was responding. There's many people in the listening session, victims of different tragedies, families. So people had also, the next person, which we won't hear from, brought up arming teachers as a potential thing. And there was things about guarding the school, putting up extra security measures. But the president's responding. After hearing that student, someone else said, what about arming teachers? And then the president goes in with this.
Okay, so why don't we go now to that video?
Your concept and your idea about it's called concealed carry. And it's It only works where you have people very adept at using firearms, of which you have many. And it would be teachers and coaches. If the coach had a firearm in his locker when he ran at this guy, that coach was very brave. Saved a lot of lives, I suspect. But if he had a firearm, he wouldn't have had a run. He would have shot, and that would have been the end of it. And this would only be, obviously, for people that are very adept at handling a gun. And it would be, it's called concealed carry, where a teacher would have a concealed gun on them. They'd go for special training, and they would be there, and you would no longer have a gun-free zone. Gun-free zone to a maniac, because they're all cowards. A gun-free zone is let's go in and let's attack, because bullets aren't coming back at us. You'd have a lot of people that'd be armed, that'd be ready. They're professionals. They may be Marines that left the Marines, left the Army, left the Air Force, and they're very adept at doing that. You'd have a lot of them, and they'd be spread evenly throughout the school. So the other thing, I really believe that if these cowards knew that the school was, well guarded from the standpoint of having pretty much professionals with great training, I think they wouldn't go into the school to start off with. I think it could very well solve your problem. So we'll be doing the background checks. We'll be doing a lot of different things, but we'll certainly be looking at ideas like that.
So he hears that impassioned plea from that student about, are you going to do anything about the guns that are killing us, literally? And he says, yeah, more guns. The OK Corral was, it's legendary because we hear about Western folklore in US, the shootout at the OK Corral. It was minuscule compared to the massacre in Florida, let alone Vegas, let alone Orlando, and the list goes on and on. So now the conservative and Donald Trump idea for school shootings is let's shoot back, let's have more guns, let's have the teachers carry weapons, because when you get angry, I'm sure that nothing will ever go wrong, right? This is the same idea they have, like, oh, let's start to bring guns into bars. Oh, that's a great idea. And so I've shown you over and over again over this last week that the number of guns is not only the main thing, almost the only thing that correlates to more gun homicides in every country. So it's 130 studies have proven it out. So if you have more guns in a school, you will have more people dying from guns. So it might be that somebody grabs a teacher's gun, maybe he leaves it out, maybe he didn't lock his locker, maybe somebody got angry that day.
Discharges it accidentally.
We have, I'll give you context. Now we're 3 times the size of Japan, but Japan had 13 gun homicides in 1 year, where we had 505 accidental discharge deaths from guns in that same year. So even if you multiplied it by 3, they'd be at 39, we'd be 505 just on accidents, okay? So they're gonna get more people killed here. And then their idea for protecting your kids is, oh, don't worry, we'll have shootouts inside the school.
Yeah, I mean, we know there's a million studies that people with guns are more likely to escalate conflicts. If you have a gun in your car, you're more likely to flip people off, follow them in your car. We still have the exact same conversation about gun-free zones that we always have. I don't know if that thing that he just said was more offensive or more stupid. He seems to believe these students go to their school to shoot it up, not because it has some special connection to them, but purely because that's a place that there are no guns. Forget the fact, of course, that there was an armed guard at the school when this happened. It's irrelevant, doesn't matter. If you don't have 100 Marines, it doesn't count. And he thinks that, like, if he knew there were guns there, they wouldn't go there. Because you go there with the AR-15 to shoot up people because you think you're gonna get out. Can you name a single school shooter that escaped and is at large? The vast majority are shot and killed. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows what happened at the end of Columbine. The vast majority of these shooters are either captured or more likely killed. None of them get out. None of them go to the school because it's a safe place to shoot people. They usually end up blowing their brains out or getting captured by police or shot in a shootout. But how do you reason with a person who is that stupid, who doesn't understand the very foundation of the act that we're talking about? And it appears, by the way, in every way possible to have literally just found out what concealed carry was before he started that listening session, because of the way he kept saying it as if it was on his calendar of the day on his toilet or something. And he's explaining to people, they're literally moms who lost kids in Sandy Hook, people who've just lost their friends. They know what concealed carry is. They know a hell of a lot more about guns than he does. Idiocy. And that kid, like I've lost a couple of people in my life, not through any acts of insane violence. I could not have imagined being able to speak on camera with all that pressure as eloquently and put together and logically as that kid did, who has literally not had the time or the ability to process the grief of what he just experienced. And then it's just ignored. It's just ignored. So he's going to try once more. Samuel Zeif again is going to try to talk some sense into the president.
I fully respect all of our amendments, including the second. But in Maryland, they have proven that the Second Amendment does not protect these types of weapons. They have banned over 45 different kinds of assault weapons, including the AR. They have banned they have limited magazine sizes. They have proven that it's not like we have to lose our Second Amendment. You know, the Second Amendment, I believe, was for defense. And I fully respect that, like I said. But these are not weapons of defense, these are weapons of war. And I still can't fathom that I myself am able to purchase one.
These are extremely specific, extremely doable changes. You could ban specific types of weapons. You could limit magazine size. You can do all of that. And we know that it would have a good effect. But we also know that if you are forced into doing it just on the state level, as some states have done, you have the problem of the fact that you are surrounded by a sea of places where you can go and you can buy one of these weapons in a few minutes if you want to. Weapons that are literally better than what some armed forces around the world have. Any jackass can go and buy one. And then he can cross state borders if he wants to.
Yeah, look, the Second Amendment is for militias. It just is. They just ignore half of the amendment. They're just like, oh, that's inconvenient. I'd like to buy whatever weapon I like and have fun. It's not for a well-regulated militia. So I'm just not going to read half the amendment. I don't care. I just want a gun. And since I feel like I need it for whatever reason, okay, fill in the blank. I'm okay with kids dying with AR-15s. So this is not what the Second Amendment says. I know as a country we've lost our minds, so we're like, just ignore it. But it is for a well-regulated militia. It was a couple hundred years ago when we didn't have an organized military. You needed it for a militia to protect your community in case foreign invaders came in, partly. And partly in the South, the militias had a second name. They were called slave patrols. So that's the history of the Second Amendment. I know it makes people uncomfortable, but that's the reality of it. And even if you believe the Second Amendment has nothing to do with a militia, even though it says militia in it, and you think, no, it means that Thomas Jefferson wanted me to have an AR-15. Did he want you to have a tank? Did he want you to have an RPG? Did he want you to have grenades, bombs?
Mustard gas.
How about a nuclear bomb? Is there no limit on the Second Amendment? If there is a limit on the Second Amendment, which of course there is on each amendment, right? You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You also can't fire into a crowded theater with an AR-15. There's a limit on the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. And if there is a limit, then we get to reasonably decide in a democracy what that limit should be. And Maryland has decided, hey, you know what? We don't want assault weapons. And there's no problem with that. Even if you fully believe in the Second Amendment, that is perfectly normal and acceptable and correct.
So there was just to continue to set the stage for this before we get to what Trump's final thoughts were. There was a decent mix of people who agreed with him on these things, like arming teachers and putting up barricades in schools. People each had their stories. People addressed the mental health part too. We won't be able to hear it, but there was a Sandy Hook mother that said, there's a mental health issue that we're talking about, but how do you determine that? Sometimes the mental health issues are, she said the vast majority of people with mental health issues aren't aggressive. They're depressed or they have issues within themselves that they're just quietly going through life with. To identify that is different than locking them up or arresting them before we assume they're all carrying out these crimes. That was ignored as well, which we'll find out if we go to that last part too, which we'll eventually. He ignored the mental health aspects, the reality of it, and also the gun legislation that was going through. There was a lot of smart things said. None of them were acknowledged was the most frustrating part of this.
Okay, well, why don't we go, if you can get video 16 ready, we're gonna go to one last video of Trump showing that he wasn't listening. He wasn't listening as the kid was giving his ideas. So we're gonna show you that, and then I have a little bit of a prediction.
If you have any suggestions, if you have any feelings as to what we should do, because there are many different ideas. Some, I guess, are good, some aren't good, some are very stringent, as you understand, and a lot of people think they work, and some are less so. But in addition to everything else, in addition to what we're going to do about background checks, we're going to go very strong into age, that's age of purchase, and we're also going to go very strong into the mental health aspect of what's going on. Because here was a case where it cried out, this person was sick, very sick, and people knew he was very sick. We're also going to look at the institutions. We're going to look at what you do when you find somebody like this, because again, right now we're not equipped like we were many years ago. All I can say is that we're fighting hard for you, and we will not stop. We will not stop. The world is watching, and we're going to come up with a solution.
They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. Yeah, he's going to look at mental health. Of course, we have to give him credit. He did already look at mental health last year when he signed a bill allowing people with exactly those sorts of problems to still get their guns. We already know what his stance is on that, and we know exactly what's going to happen. More guns. I think, to my prediction, I think right now we've got this popular movement largely led by the survivors of tragedies like this that I think are going to do an amazing amount of good at the state and local level to put pressure on politicians, hopefully scare some congressmen and senators into doing the right thing. But I also know, because I've been alive and breathing for the past year and a half, exactly what's going to happen at the federal level. He is going to say, I want Democrats and Republicans to come together and do some kind of bill. We're going to fight for you, and you give it to me, and I'm going to sign it. And then the absolute troglodytes and monsters in Congress are going to do the most minor background check possible and say, if you want that, you need to do concealed carry reciprocity. You need to do this long list of absolute insane, extreme right-wing fantasies of gun control. And if they don't give them everything there, he is going to begin Twitter tirades attacking Crying Chuck and whoever, insane juvenile nicknames, and he's gonna make it seem as if the Democrats, who aren't leading on this issue, but at least would do something, are the actual cause of no progress whatsoever. We've seen this played out a million times. It's about to happen again on guns.
And there at the end, when he went through his so-called solutions of believe me, we're gonna solve it, gun control was not among the solutions that he mentioned. Because they're not gonna do gun control. That's not what they do. Donald Trump got $30 million from the NRA when he ran. He's bought lock, stock, and barrel. In this case, kind of literally.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't care what those kids say. That's why he listened to those kids and he ignored them. And he's like, oh, you want gun control? That is not on my to-do list. Instead, I'm gonna talk about mental health, when in reality, we have the same mental health problems that the whole rest of the world, the same rate as the rest of the developed world. That is not the issue. What is different about us, where we have far more gun violence than the rest of the developed world, is we have far more guns. It is, how many times can we say 130 different studies prove it out, but nonetheless we have this insane conversation because our politicians are corrupt. That's what they are. And so just last point on John's point about mental health. Look, if you don't know, that was one of the first things that Trump did. He reversed an Obama regulation saying that now if you are so mentally incompetent that Social Security cannot trust you with a check they're giving you, they must give it to someone who's gonna take care of you, you're still allowed to buy a gun. Obama said, well, I mean, if they're mentally incompetent, that they can't even handle $1, maybe we shouldn't let them buy a gun. Trump says, no, we should let those people buy guns. He doesn't care about mental health. And he just, in his budget, he just cut mental health by over $650 million. So what happened? I thought you were gonna do, no, it's all a lie. They're not gonna do a goddamn thing because Trump is the swamp.
We should probably take our second break. We've got more, obviously, both on this topic and some other topics as well.
Yes, so let's come right back. All right, post game here in Studio B. It's a green screen magic of internet television.
A lot of condom breaking stories.
Any conversation that starts with marriage is an interesting thing deserves a little bit of.
When the kid cries, perhaps that's that is an opportunity to do some. It's an opportunity to do some parenting.
Yeah, parenting is you cry, you're gone.
Oh my God.
I love that video.
Yeah, Ben, I got a great achoo. You're like, my mouth was open, she sneezed in my eye.
I used to have Donut Tower next to my desk.
Yeah, I'll dress up like a girl.
I sound confident now, Anna.
Yeah.
When we're off the air, I'm gonna be like, how is this gonna work?
When you get literally asked why 21 straight times.
Yeah.
And like at some point you're like, you're fucking with me now, right?
So I dumped the kids off at her mom's and I drove down to La Jolla for a day.
Get out, kids.
They're like, but daddy, no.
Why? What do you mean why? You asked me to look at you. You did it. You brought it up. You know you're doing it. What do you mean why? I don't know why. I was reading. She's lovely. Here's what's different. Like, it is a different feeling. Everybody says this, but it's 5:11 when we're shooting this. I can't wait to go home. Like that, I can't wait to see her.
What you guys do is allow us to be open and honest, and we don't have to worry about censorship, and we don't have to worry about sponsors telling us what we can and can't say. We're accountable by our audience and our audience only, and I absolutely love that. That's the best part about being a member. We love you guys.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Got to read some tweets real quick. Sean Ferris says, any solution to gun violence that is arm everyone isn't a solution. Quote, if they had guns on schools, they wouldn't shoot schools. Okay, so we're gonna arm people in every single public place, coast to coast. And Sean, of course, that's exactly what the NRA wants. And that's part of why they push that agenda. And Sean, good to have you agreeing again. Or you and I agreeing again. Rommel J. Guzman says, US culture is the sickest culture in human history. It's a culture of violence from its very foundation, and nothing will change that. We're talking about a country that murdered the natives and brought slaves to do the work for the owners. Chase Ibanez writes in, Trump logic, a few immigrants commit murder, get them all out, including the legal immigrants. Nearly daily mass shootings, get more guns. Yes, when do we remove the the people that were born here that are doing all the violence. In fact, that might be one of the stories we get to in a second. So let's keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Christian televangelist Pat Robertson had a somewhat surprising take on the gun control debate that we're having as a country right now. If you're familiar with him, he tends to be pretty conservative, pretty traditional, and has knee-jerk reactions to a lot of what's going on in this country. But in this case, he might surprise you. Let's watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am a gun owner. I have hunted. I have shot skeet. I've gotten awards when I was in the Marine Corps for shooting. I've got no opposition whatsoever to shooting. But for heaven's sakes, I don't think that the general population needs to have automatic weapons. It just doesn't have to have Russian-built or Chinese-built machine guns. It just doesn't. I mean, it's one thing to defend yourself with a pistol or a shotgun to hunt with, something else to have, and I think we can ban those things without too much trouble. And they have what they call bump stock that was, you hit it, and it would go automatic. And I mean, we can stop that. And then there has to be some medical background check. If somebody is seeing a psychiatrist, is on medication, he or she needs to be prohibited from being turned loose to the general population. It's just got to be, it's sensible. But as far as the right of the people to keep and bear arms, the Second Amendment, and we're all for it.
Okay, well, things have gotten crazy when we agree with Pat Robertson or he agrees with us. So I think that we're getting there, man. I mean, if we broke through to Pat Robertson or the shootings did, I think that we're near the middle of the country. So for those of you unfamiliar with America, because a lot of people outside the country watch us as well, we have the reverse of what you probably have in your country. In your country, probably the religious leaders, the nuns, the priests, the preachers are the first to call for nonviolence, right? In our country, the preachers are the last to call for nonviolence. So if Pat Robertson, who has been for war after war and devastation and plagues, etc., if our right-wing preachers are calling for nonviolence, wow, that means we have reached near the bottom of the barrel. Like we might actually begin to turn around. Yeah. So, and then one quick point about what he said about limiting guns to people who have mental health issues. His standard was anybody going to see a psychiatrist. That'll never pass, nor should it necessarily pass.
Way too far.
Right. Now, but do you know what the real standard is in America right now? The only way you're barred from buying a gun is if a court has adjudicated you mentally incompetent and incapable of taking care of yourself, or you have been locked in a mental hospital against your will, okay? And by the way, just some adjudications of mental incompetence is not enough. So for example, Social Security says some people are mentally incompetent and cannot receive a single dollar on their own. They must have someone take care of it for them. That's not enough of us. The Republicans overturned that legislation saying they should be allowed to buy a gun. They can't control their own money, but they are allowed to buy AR-15s. Yeah. A court has to say, you are so mentally unbalanced and unhinged that you are not allowed to buy a gun, which is the craziest standard. I'm sure it's the most strident standard anywhere in the world. So Pat Robertson has no idea how far away his standard is from the actual standard in America. We let crazy people buy guns here all the time.
Yeah, I noticed, by the way, in the beginning of that video, he either did or had to do this thing that you have to do in America. If you want to be allowed to talk about guns, let alone gun control, you have to give your resume. So you don't generally shoot a lot of guns, so I'm gonna need you to zip it on the guns. I will say I've never owned a gun, but my father owned a bunch of guns. I had my gun of his. I've been target shooting many times. I've been skeet shooting like Pat Roberts. So I am allowed to talk about guns according to the twisted logic that we have in this country. And nobody needs these assault weapons. It's ridiculous. It's not just the huge clips. It's not just the accuracy. It is the incredible destructive power that they have, even compared to shotguns and handguns and things like that. I want to give just a tiny bit of credit to Anderson Cooper who I don't normally give credit to, but he pointed out on his show yesterday, which I read, that we sanitize a lot of things in this country, but one thing we sanitize more than anything else is the actual effect of these guns, what the injuries actually look like. People think a gunshot is a gunshot. What's the difference? A gun is a gun. These don't leave gun. It's not like you got shot and you have a hole. This blows body parts off. It destroys torsos. It shatters skulls. And I don't know how you fix that. I don't know how you get through to people, because obviously people don't want to see the actual effects of it, and very few Americans serve in the military. But I think that if people actually saw how uniquely destructive these weapons are, they would not think that this is just like any other weapon. It is not a rhetorical trick to call it a weapon of war. It is literally a weapon of war in many parts of the world. And thankfully, even Pat Robertson is being clued into that now. Okay, why don't we move on to something very different. The assault against the Affordable Care Act isn't over. They tried to get rid of the entire thing last year and weren't totally successful, and they have been chipping away at it ever since, and now that assault is continuing in a new stealthy form, both in the Department of Health and Human Services and also in various forms in states. And today we're gonna break that down. It's coming now in the form of what are called short-term health plans. And those are being pushed traditionally for people who are like between jobs or something like that. They can't necessarily get a normal health plan for the long run, so they get a temporary one. But that's now being used in a multi-pronged attempt to try to destabilize the entirety of the ACA. So these short-term policies typically have higher out-of-pocket costs and cover fewer services than traditional insurance, because they're extremely limited in what they actually do. And importantly, that kind of coverage is free from the ACA's insurance regulations. That includes the mandate to cover essential health benefits, which sound like the sort of thing that health insurance has to cover, or else what is the point? But they don't have to cover that. The prohibition on charging sick people more than healthy people, they can get around that. They can deny people coverage based on their medical history, and they can also impose caps on how much you can spend each year overall, or in particular things like physical therapy. They just cap out, they don't want to pay anymore, because all of the advancements in the ACA to try to get rid of some of these historic abuses against the American people are allowed in these short-term caps. Now, the Obama administration, in an effort to curtail the use of such coverage to sort of circumvent the ACA, back in 2016 shortened how long you can have it to 3 months. Well, the Trump administration is going to reverse that rule, once again allowing people to buy this non-Obamacare coverage for almost an entire year. Now, the benefit and the reason that this is very stealthy is that these plans are, in the short term, less expensive so long as you're healthy. They can be up to 70% cheaper than ACA plans, so long as you don't actually get sick or need any coverage. Once you do, they're incredibly expensive. But if you're healthy, they might seem appealing, at least for a little while, Cenk. But the damaging thing there is, if you try to get people to sign on to these sorts of plans, yes, they'll pay a little bit less then, but who is it going to appeal to? Certainly not the very sick, the terminally ill, anything like that. It's going to appeal exclusively to healthy people, which means that you then take those healthy people out of the ACA pools, which will of course drive up the cost of health insurance for the people remaining in it. And that is how long term they can do another way to try to destabilize the entire thing, make it fiscally impossible to sustain and bring down the entire structure.
Okay, this is a nearly perfect Republican trick. So on the surface, if you're not paying any attention and you don't dive into the annoying details, well, I'm a young, healthy guy, this is gonna bring down my rates. That's true, it does. It does bring down your rates. So you win, excellent. Okay, well, there comes the issues. First of all, it's not actually insurance. What do I mean by that? So if you're young and healthy and you don't have any problems, you pay them. Now you give them money, and since you're healthy, you get sometimes nothing in return, or some small amount thing for a checkup or something like that, right? But if you get sick, they cap how much you can get in a year. So to be fair, it's half insurance. So if you break your leg, you're not gonna hit your cap for the year, and they're gonna cover your insurance for you if you break your leg. You get cancer, you're gonna hit your cap. And guess what happened? You're dead. You just don't have insurance, and nobody's gonna pay that money, and you hit your cap, you don't have it. They're not gonna give it to you. Oops, it turns out you didn't really have insurance. They took all your money, but when you really, really needed the insurance, they don't cover you.
Yeah.
So it's a mirage. So it's not even good for the people paying the low rates. Second set of people paying the low rates that are gonna get screwed, The ones that then develop a pre-existing condition. You didn't have one going in, you came in healthy. This happened to me. Luckily, I had good insurance. If I was under this system, I would have been screwed. At the age of 31, I appeared to be perfectly healthy, and then I got a really bad illness. And then all of a sudden, I got a pre-existing condition. So if I go turn around and buy that same insurance once it runs out, because they're all short term, they're like, sorry, now your insurance is sky high. Sometimes we won't even let you buy it. Oops, another mirage. So they lure you in with fake promises of it being a low amount you're paying, but that's just basically to take your money. Because if you have a really bad illness, they're not going to cover it, okay? And then for the people who already have pre-existing conditions, you're totally screwed. Well, then what is the goddamn point of healthcare? The whole point is we all pull our money together. That's how insurance works. And so if any of us get sick, you take it out of the insurance. If that's not how it works, and the healthy people pay for no reason, and the sick people die, that's not insurance. So they're gonna kill the Affordable Care Act by driving up the prices for anyone that isn't already young and healthy. And by the way, the third leg of this is, on top of everything, it actually increases expenses for the federal government and drives up the deficit. It's a lose-lose all around. But the one set of people who win from this, health insurance companies. You know what Blue Cross in Idaho is calling the new plans? Freedom plans.
Yeah,
you get the freedom to die if you hit your yearly cap.
Yeah, and so that's the thing, like this is what they want to do nationally, but in some states they're being allowed to experiment in even more broader ways. In some areas, these are not short-term things. They're at the state level allowing the healthcare providers to do plans that just don't comply with the law, and they can charge people different amounts based on how sick they might have been before. They can ban people for pre-existing conditions, and you might say, but we have the federal law, we have the ACA. Exactly, and so when they break the law, then Trump and the federal government step in and correct them. Oh wait, no they don't, because they don't actually want the ACA to be there, which is why it's important to have a president and an executive branch that will actually enforce the law. And so now if you happen to live in one of those states, a conservative state, you could be screwed over and there's literally nothing you can do about it because the government just doesn't care that they're breaking the law. And that's the thing, like I was thinking again about Sicko, the Michael Moore movie that came out back in like 2006, before we had the ACA. And we've had the ACA for so long now that we are able to clearly see, I mean, we knew at the time when they were creating it, some of the huge flaws in it, how it doesn't go far enough, it still leaves lots of people uninsured, and we can do all of those criticisms, and we need to because we need to establish a system that's better. But I think some people have forgotten how much worse things were before, that your coverage, your premiums were going up every single year, and that was with almost no actual coverage on a day-to-day basis. It was with these sorts of plans you were getting charged more. And all of the advancements of ACA, for all of its problems, corrected those flaws. And now we are one by one, we're going back to the way things were before the ACA.
Yep. Meanwhile, Azar, who's the now new head of HHS, says, you know, the reason Idaho is doing this is a cry for help because the prices are just too high. So I think I'm gonna have to help Idaho by totally screwing it over. Last thing on this, guys, the only silver lining, and it is not a pretty one, is that likely the Republican led states will now do this and the federal government will allow them to do it. The blue states probably will not do it. My guess is if it really goes on for several years, it'll get so bad in the red states that they're gonna start moving to blue states. I'm serious, because if you got a pre-existing condition and you're in a red state, you will be royally screwed.
Yeah.
And so eventually people are gonna go, well, if I stay in Kentucky, I'm gonna die. I gotta move, right? My daughter's gonna die, my mom is gonna die, I gotta move. So they're creating these like shithole states within the country where you lower wages, no health care, no Medicaid help,
no labor rights.
I mean, good luck with that. It is a disaster in the making.
Yeah.
Okay,
we've got an awesome story that is not super time sensitive, so I think we can do it on tomorrow's show.
Okay, we're done with the first hour. Legendary Andy Kasparian's coming next. I gotta tell you something. I'm gonna have an opinion next hour that might enrage you, but it is not about Russia. Okay, and you'll be.
I don't know what story.
It's on gun control, and so it's going to throw you for a loop. Okay, so let's talk about that when we return. We are actually the longest running daily stream on the planet.
Later tonight, we start a revolution. Yes, another one.
I ask leave of the Senate to continue my remarks.
Too strong.
You're not answering the question. Answer the question.
No one is above the law, and that includes the President of the United States of America. Go, engage, fire.
Congrats to the Young Turks. They actually won a Stream the Award tonight.
We'd like to thank Donald Trump, obviously.
We just crossed 7.6 billion views.
Revolution won't be televised. Hello, Internet.
I am the least anti-Semitic person that you've ever seen. I think there's blame on both sides.
Oh, these politicians, they're the worst.
They had these beautiful soft towels.
It's just so wrong.
They took your wealth and redistributed it to them.
The government's robbing you, and they're distracting you with fucking nonsense.
Fake news, the enemy of the people. Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
I can't speak as dumb as he understands.
The market will be destroyed by this plan, and 45 million people will be left without insurance.
They will be met with fire and fury. We've just launched 59 missiles.
MSNBC shows the bombs taking off, and Al Jazeera shows you when they land.
The profiling and the Muslim bans have begun.
Today, my father and brother await deportation.
Horrific act of violence in Charlottesville. I want you to see what hate looks like in America.
What a sick country we live in.
It's time to get up and fight back.
Giant protests against Donald Trump.
Women's marches take over more than 500 cities across the United States.
Immigrants throughout the United States who protest.
I don't think they're peasants. I actually think that they enrich this country with their culture.
I don't want a resistance. I want a revolution.
History is not on your side.
Your fundamental principle is flawed.
This is outrageous. It's unethical. It's bad government. And frankly, it's fucking, corruption.
We work together as a community and we stand up for each other.
A total solar eclipse. Oh my God.
Climate change is my #1 issue, and to be able to help amplify the message and research of these workers is like a dream come true.
Colin Kaepernick chose to sit during the national anthem to protest police violence against African Americans. This has sparked a new movement.
More and more women are sharing their stories of sexual assault.
It's happening right in front of our eyes as the culture is shifting.
We have to speak up ourselves, and we have to create movements ourselves.
To see it unfolding in real time as women stand up together collectively and go no more.
So many women came out of that women's march and said, I'm running for office.
You want to talk about the revolution? Here it is. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
TYT.
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 Young Turks.
You do have the power to change people, you do. I hope one day we can all learn to live together in a decent way and not let oftentimes the media and the corrupt established system tear us apart.
All right, back on Young Turks, Janky and Anna with you guys. Sandra Oat writes in, I'd rather stick red hot pokers in my eyes than agree with Pat Robertson, but in this case, well, look, the good news is he's agreeing with us. He's come in our direction. Carrie G writes in, we have guns in our home. My husband is a vet and certified handgun instructor. Our 14-year-old daughter walked out of class today to protest gun violence. She's right. We as a family completely support common sense regulation here in a conservative Texas town. Well, Carrie, thank you for writing in. Really appreciate it, and I think a lot of people are headed in that direction. All right, the members of the day are Douglas Williams and Bernice Barnett. You guys are in for a treat. We got a post game for you guys. That's going to be interesting. I think I found out why we have a difference in perception with some folks who listen on the issue of Russia. It's not going to get too serious or thing. I just want to give you some context. And then Old School tonight with Adam Green. That's tytnetwork.com/join to become a member. And next Tuesday, the elections begin. The first primary is Arizona's 8th district, and we'll be covering it all night here. So come watch at tytnetwork.com/live, 6 to 8 p.m. Young Turks, 8 to 8:30 Rebel headquarters, 8:30 on special election coverage next Tuesday night. Okay, Anna, what's next?
All right. Right-wing smear attacks have already begun against the students who not only experienced the carnage in Parkland, Florida following that mass shooting, but students who have the audacity to speak out against the gun laws or the lax gun laws that we have in place. Now, these right-wingers are claiming that these students who are using their voices to spread the message of gun control are not actual students, they're really actors, paid actors. So the conspiracy theory is that some of the students are crisis actors, paid performers funded by familiar boogeymen like George Soros to vilify gun ownership and dismantle the Second Amendment. So one example is Benjamin Kelly. He's actually an aide for a lawmaker in Florida. Kelly, the aide, sent Times reporter Alex Leary an email claiming Marjorie Stoneman Douglas students, Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg, were not actual students but actors. Kelly, from his official Florida state legislature email account, told Leary that both kids in the picture are not students here but actors that travel to various crises when they happen. Okay, well, he lost his job as a result of that ridiculous email.
So it's an interesting moment in Republican politics because the Republican Party is now the conspiracy theory party. So all the Pizzagate stuff's from over there. Every shooting, there's some sort of conspiracy theory about how it was someone else and it was staged and it was this and it was that. President Trump brags about going on Alex Jones' show and the 80% gorillas, 80% pig hybrids that they've got going on there, et cetera. So some portion of the Republican Party, and not an insignificant portion, have lost their minds. So now they're all encouraged to come out now because they're like, oh, the president is also a conspiracy theorist. He's the one that did the birther theory and the list goes on. So it is interesting to note that I guess this massacre was bad enough in Florida that even Republican leaders in the state were like, that's a little too far and not right now. So they fired him, which I give them credit for. So there's a little bit of a battle within the Republican Party as to whether to just simply let the lunatics take over or let their inner lunatic out, or to say, no, there is actually a bridge too far. And apparently this was it in Florida.
Right, and by the way, if you watch Fox News, if you listen to Patriot Radio on Sirius XM and listen to the Breitbart show on Sirius XM, you will hear these conspiracy theories perpetuated. They will literally attack the students who themselves experienced this mass shooting, who literally saw their peers get shot and killed in front of their very eyes. They will attack them. And then, by the way, turn around and do commentary on stories involving reproductive rights and how abortion is murder. Or they'll turn around and talk about, oh, don't ever politicize a mass shooting because you need to let the victims grieve, unless the victims are grieving in a way that they don't like.
In which case you should smear them and try to destroy their lives and make up conspiracy theories.
These are kids, these are kids, they're kids.
And by the way, Donald Trump Jr. liked a tweet with this particular conspiracy about how they're paid actors. I mean, at the highest levels, they have lost their minds. And it is not equal. It is not equal. One side has lost track of reality. The other side might have its issues. And I mean, the Democrats as a party have a million issues, but they're not insane. They're annoying, they're establishment, they're pro status quo. They're slowly helping to keep our wages down. But they're not lunatics.
They're corrupt, they're corrupt. There's no question about that.
But the Republicans are corrupt and lunatics. So look, again, not all of them, because here they did the right thing. Leadership in Florida did the right thing and they got rid of the guy. But it goes all the way up to Donald Trump Jr. and it goes to all their media. Where do they get their news? They get their news from these insane websites. So who's spreading this stuff? Again, InfoWars. Again, Gateway Pundit. So I don't know that there is a conservative website in the country that doesn't put out continual stream of lies. There's no, like, in the old days, can I just say, Anna, sorry. In the old days, there used to be conservative magazines by William F. Buckley, et cetera. You might not agree, but they didn't just wholesale make up stuff.
Like National Review, for instance. I don't agree with a lot of things that are reported in National, or the perception or the stance that's taken on stories in National Review. But at least it comes from a genuine place. You know what I'm saying? At least we're having a debate, an ideological debate, rather than what we're seeing now with some, like InfoWars, for instance, Breitbart, the conspiracy theorists that just smear people that they disagree with, and then you're not even having a conversation that's based in fact anymore, or a debate that's based in fact anymore.
So like the Weekly Standard is a neocon rag. I can't stand it, okay? And it helped to drive us into the Iraq war. Terrible, terrible consequences from that. And it does propaganda. But like we've now gotten to a place where that seems normal, because at least they didn't say, oh, we gotta go get Iraq because the lizard people are in Iraq. And Saddam Hussein is 80% gorilla, 80% pig, and sent in actors to do X, Y, Z. They just did normal propaganda about how there was weapons of mass destruction and Saddam had done 9/11. Those things weren't true either, and it had worse consequences. I fully understand that. But they would twist facts. They would give an interpretation. They would say, oh, they went to meet in Czechoslovakia and make a giant out of it or the Czech Republic or whatever it was at the time. But at least they were grounded on planet Earth. They were trying to manipulate facts on planet Earth. These guys have lost their goddamn minds, and they're driving their readership, their viewers, and even Republican officials to absolute lunacy. And they've been encouraged to come out of the lunatic closet. And so here we are with some portion of the country that's emboldened to say insane thing one.
To attack victims. Again, victims who experience their own friends and teachers get shot and killed in front of their very eyes. They think that it's a good idea to attack them and smear them. It's just so devastating. There's more, by the way, that I really want to get to. So Snopes had to debunk some of these conspiracy theories. They looked into claims that David Hogg, who's one of these students who's been smeared, is not really a Parkland student, as claimed by a website that posted a page from a purported classmates.com yearbook from Redondo Shores High School in California, claiming to show Hogg as a student in Los Angeles, and a quote from a classmate who said he always wanted to work for CNN and be an actor. It was all photoshopped. It was all photoshopped.
Of course it was.
A former student at Parkland's Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School notes that the Redondo page is actually from a Douglas yearbook, which explains why many in the photo are wearing a Douglas shirt. So you see this stuff on Twitter and Facebook all the time. You know, whether it comes from bad actors in the US or some other country, I don't know, but you see it all the time. You see photoshopped imagery all the time. You know, you see these smear attacks to discredit people who have genuine concerns and want to, you know, basically pressure our politicians to finally represent us and protect us. That's what we're seeing right now. And it's so sad that these students have to deal with smears following such a traumatic and devastating moment in their lives.
One last thing about this. Look, I used to read conservative articles. Unless they're from a legit publication, I don't read them anymore. Because if there's a conservative website, I don't know what's true and what's not true. So it's actually even hurting conservative causes, because some percentage of rational human beings have realized you cannot trust a word that comes out of a conservative website. You have no idea what's Photoshop, what's not Photoshop, what's a conspiracy theory, what's not. I mean, some are obvious and brazen and ridiculous, but almost every other thing they print is a lie. So, okay, I guess you're gonna trick some of the people some of the time, and you've got your short-term win in Donald Trump, and you must be ecstatic, and you guys were the ones who did the fake news in the first place, then you turn around and blame everybody else for it. I get it, but in the long term, any rational person should never read a conservative website and think that it has any credibility or shred of truth in it at all. Their job, they don't view lying as the bug, they view it as the feature. So, by the way, if you're a real conservative, why don't you start a publication or something where you actually give an actual point of view with an ideology, defend conservative ideas without making up lunatic conspiracy theories and blaming poor people who just saw people get shot right in front of their eyes.
By the way, the majority of these students are not calling for a ban on guns. They're calling for common sense gun legislation, like not allowing 18 and 19-year-olds to purchase guns, banning high capacity magazines, banning assault weapons. I mean, David Hogg specifically on CNN talked about how he supports the Second Amendment, but every constitutional right has limitations, including the First Amendment. Why is it that for some reason the Second Amendment should have no limitations based on what the NRA wants and based on the individuals who have bought into that propaganda?
Okay, so like guys, we got to take a break, but there's a couple of things left. One, you're not going to believe the story in Florida, what they actually did pass a law against. Right now, it's unreal. And so that is the official Republican Party. And then the point where you might disagree with me, that's still coming up. That's in the next segment. We'll see you there in a minute. Look, we're doing interviews over there at youtube.com/TYT interviews. And we've done some amazing ones recently. So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders. Yeah. Why not back him during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all?
And we're in the time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history in 2017.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Hi, Aaron. I'm confused. Is it Cenk Uygur or Cenk Uygur? Go.
Hey, Dave. As you can probably see, Skype froze. Froze and crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited right now.
Did anybody call for an editor?
Need this in an hour.
But you're an editor too.
Love you.
All right, back on the Young Turks. First, let's start with this fun one. Jessica Chastain says, hey, TYT, is that salsa music coming back from the break in honor of Anna Kasparian and her salsa dancing inspo on IG, on Instagram?
Do you guys like it? Have you seen my salsa dancing videos?
I saw one of them. Yeah, they exist. I'm not much for salsa dancing. And I was trying to figure out, no, it is not in honor of Anna's Instagram dancing. But so I was like, why is Bart playing? And I looked up, I'm like, oh, it's Irma, of course,
yeah.
of course.
Who is also a salsa dancing queen, for sure.
That's right. Yeah. If you listen to Old School, sometimes you'll hear us talk about Irma and her dancing. And Irma, it's working. Craig was dancing in here. All right, now some serious tweets. Chris Duran writes in, remember the good old days when the French conspiracy theorists, gun nuts, weren't holding the levers of power?
Yeah, I miss those days.
I know, right? Old Turk says not being insane is one of the Democrats' best qualities.
Is it though? I mean, I feel like not being insane is now a liability. Because you're not willing to like fight dirty, like you play fair. It's
There's a candidate that we're going to talk a lot about tomorrow, a progressive candidate who is in great shape. I think it was in his race. Anyway, one of the establishment candidates, the Democrat, his slogan is something like, "We don't fight back." It's not quite that, but it was something along those lines. I'm like, no way, are you serious?
That's awesome.
It is unreal. Anyway, last one is Ronald Reese actually writing in on YouTube Super Chat, which also helps the show, by the way. Thank you, Ronald. Police shootings, protesting in the streets, these are the things you'd never think would happen in America. I'm brought to tears for the future of our country if we don't force a change. Well, hopefully 2018 is the beginning of that change. All right, Anna, what's next?
All right. YouTube had to take down a video today that unfortunately for a brief period of time was the #1 trending video on YouTube. And that #1 trending video helped spread this false narrative that the students who are protesting for better gun regulation are not in fact students from Parkland, Florida, but that they are child actors who are just trying to stir the pot and who are paid by people like George Soros. Now in the video, I didn't get a chance to look at it before it was taken down, but it's been described as accusing David Hogg, one of the more outspoken students, of forgetting his rehearsed lines. And it's all a lie. It's all an effort to discredit and smear these students so we don't actually have real change in the country in regard to these gun laws. Now, I can understand why YouTube would take it down, but Cenk, you have a different perspective.
Yeah, I don't think they should have taken it down, and I'll tell you why. First of all, is it garbage? Of course it is. Is it horribly untrue? Of course it is. And so, what do? All these conspiracy theorists do two things. They just have to pick one other dot, and then they say, okay, this happened, and then this happened. Connect the dots. So what's the dot in this case? Once David Hogg was in California and happened to be in somehow in a video where he was involved with a lifeguard, and so they're like, aha, he's not actually from Florida, he's from California. And then we're gonna make up a quote about how he always wanted to be an actor, and whenever there's a crisis, lifeguard, shooting, crisis, he became a crisis actor. And unfortunately, there's a lot of gullible people, mainly on the right, tiny bit on the left, but a lot of them in the country now, way higher percentage than I would have expected, who go, aha, okay, we have connected the dots. No, you haven't. It turns out he was on vacation in California and that happened. It has nothing to do with anything. And no, the quotes about him wanting to be an actor or Photoshop, not true, yada, yada, etc., right? So, and come on, have you no freaking decency? And they don't. So why do I argue that they shouldn't have taken it down? Because look at YouTube. It's filled with conspiracy theories. And where do you draw the line? So, okay, you can say, all right, then I gotta take down InfoWars. InfoWars is a huge channel. It's littered with conspiracy theories.
Yeah, so where's the downside? I don't get it. You've given me nothing but upside so far. Continue.
Okay, so look, a lot of people believe in him. A lot of people believe in his political ideology. Look, I think you're insane if you believe that there are 80% human, 80% gorilla, 80% pig hybrids, and that the frogs are gay or because of the water or the Pepsi or whatever he believes, right?
Allow me to be absolutely clear in what I think, where I draw the line, okay? So let me pick someone who I disagree with often, but I wouldn't want to ban them from anything, including YouTube. Ben Shapiro. Don't agree with him on 98% of the things that he says, probably. But I would never want to ban him because he's an honest actor. Do you see what I'm saying?
Nah, barely, but yes.
You know what I mean. Like he's not, as far as I know, Ben Shapiro doesn't go out of his way to intentionally defame people and smear them, because that's what InfoWars does. They mess with people's lives, they mess with people's reputations.
But Anna, it is a super hard line to draw. So if you go to Ben's website, so 99% of the, it used to be 97, now it's 99% of the world's scientists agree that climate change is real and it's man-made.
Right.
And he will twist that, he will find one thing that is makes up a thing about how no, in fact, 97% of the world's scientists don't agree. Or go look at it yourself, or don't waste your time. But so, okay, it's not a conspiracy theory, but it is wildly misrepresentative, and Ben is smart enough to know that he's obviously misrepresenting what the scientists said.
I know, and we're dealing with a sad state of affairs where, yes, I get it. Like giving him a pass, it seems like you're having a double standard there. But understand what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that there is a big difference between the Ben Shapiros of the world, who might twist the data to fit their agenda, and the people who peddle conspiracy theories like Pizzagate, for instance, right? That's where people are either defamed to the point where their reputations could be destroyed, right? Ruining their lives, or it could lead to actual violence, it could incite violence. In this case, we're talking about kids. These people aren't even adults yet, they're children, and they're being smeared by these right-wing lunatics, and who knows what kind of danger might come their way because of these types of videos. That's the thing that I worry about.
No, I understand that, Anna, but look, I wouldn't let you draw the line, but it doesn't really matter because you're not gonna be the one drawing the line. You know who's gonna draw the line eventually? The establishment. And the establishment is not gonna draw it where you draw it. And you might draw it at a reasonable place, but you know what they're gonna say, and they're saying it now, and they're putting all the pressure in the world on YouTube. And in this story, everybody's like, how can YouTube allow this? Another disaster. Okay, so obviously, not only do I not agree with it, I know it's fake, all this stuff, and we fight against it tooth and nail every single day. But then they will say, well, I kind of don't like your opinion either.
I know, and yes, it is a slippery slope and it's scary, but I will also say this, what are we gonna do? Like, what are we gonna do? Because at this point, I personally feel like anything that we do is a wasted effort, because Americans have absolutely no media literacy whatsoever, none. They fall victim to all sorts of propaganda, and I'm not just talking about propaganda from foreign bad actors. I'm talking about propaganda from here, the United States of America. They will fall for anything. I see all sorts of nonsense shared on my social media feeds on a regular basis where the most crazy accusations, the biggest lunatic peddling the most ridiculous conspiracy theory is taken seriously. They'll have hundreds of thousands of views. My own friends and family members will share it on their feed because Americans have no media literacy. That's the reason why it's so easy for foreign countries to get involved and spread divisive content here.
I know, but look, so let me.
So what's the answer? What do we do? I don't know.
So first of all, you cannot fix all of humanity. So, and you're not gonna curtail it by taking some freedoms away. Now, look, I don't think freedoms are unlimited, so I'm not in the camp that the Second Amendment is unlimited, etc., right? But in terms of political speech, it is super important to allow it, even though it allows the monsters to spread their lies, etc. First of all, is it just America's? Hell no. You go to any country, huge chunks of the country believe in massive conspiracy theories, right? So it is partly in our nature because we can't, it's hard for us to figure out the universe. So by the way, there's a conspiracy theory that a guy walked on water, was born of a virgin, and then converts water into wine, and billions of people believe that. There's another conspiracy theory that a guy talked to Allah on a mountaintop, and then Allah told him to have sex with everybody's wives, okay? And 1.6 billion people believe that. So we can't stop people believing wrong things. And I'll tell you right now, the minute you allow for that, they're gonna come for all of us. And look, let's even talk about conspiracy theories. One of the theories that is put in a conspiracy theory bucket is the JFK assassination. No, the conspiracy is that a bullet zigzags in midair. That's insanity, but the establishment has declared that it is the truth. So that is not remotely true. The RFK thing is not remotely true. But then under that rubric, you're banned from ever discussing that. That is really dangerous. So these guys are dangerous, but the opposite I think is even worse.
Okay.
So the only way to do it is to keep on fighting them, and I know it's a long, hard struggle.
We've been fighting them, Cenk, and we're losing. We're losing, we're losing. Let's keep it real, we're losing.
In the short term, yes, Donald Trump is in office.
I'm not just talking about Donald Trump, I'm talking about the way Americans think, the way Americans act. I'm talking about our discourse.
They are a minority, and Trump won the election with a minority. Look, I know that it is really hard not to get discouraged, and I know it's really hard to believe in the long term. But in the long term, what's gonna happen? Yes, some percentage of people will believe nonsense no matter what. They believed it even before there was the internet and YouTube, right? But in the end, a lot of people will go, you know what? And I've seen this happen with my own eyes, hundreds of times, people emailing, texting, telling me in person, I used to believe it, then I was like, wow, that's really weird. Oh, that one's wrong. Well, I know that one is wrong. Oh, well, I don't. And then people realize eventually that a lot of these right-wing websites and channels are garbage. So at some point, lie after lie after lie, they say, okay, let me just move on to things that are true. And then we can agree or disagree, as long as we're on the same planet and we agree on what the facts are, then we can have our different opinions. So look, the New York Times is doing great now. Now you could argue that they have an establishment bias, et cetera, but at least people are saying, I'm going to go subscribe to them because I at least trust them. So people in the long run will gravitate towards things that they trust, and you gotta earn that trust through years and years. And after burning people's trust over and over again, they will lose most of the people, not all of the people, but most of the people. So because, and the alternative of trying to enforce our opinions or some other establishment figure's opinions on everyone else, I think is a terrible idea.
Okay, but understand that that is not what I'm advocating for. I am advocating for taking down content that is specifically defamatory with the intention of smearing and discrediting people that whoever made the video disagrees with. That is what I'm talking. I'm not talking about establishment, pro-establishment versus anti-establishment opinion. I'm not even talking about opinion. I am talking about people who intentionally smear others and defame others, and especially in this case where there are kids involved.
Okay, great point, Anna. So if they have broken the law in some demonstrable way, so if Alex Jones thinks that the frogs are gay, it doesn't matter, they're not people, nobody cares about you defaming the frogs. Or you believe in your hybrids or your lizard people, it doesn't matter. But if you call someone a lizard person, or it's someone in particular, and you have defamed them in a way that is provable, et cetera, and you say, well, okay, now that's a violation of the law and you should take action, then I would agree with you, because it is specifically targeting people and spreading lies about that.
That's right. Okay, let's move on to another story. One Texas school district has threatened to suspend students for 3 days if they decide to walk out of class in order to participate in some of the student protests that are taking place throughout the country. Now, these protests are a direct response to the shooting that took place in Parkland, Florida, and some superintendents are not having it. So Needville ISD Superintendent Curtis Rhodes sent a letter out to all parents in the school district warning them that any protests from their children would result in a 3-day suspension from school. The letter said, please be advised that the Needville ISD will not allow a student demonstration during school hours for any type of protest or awareness. A school is a place to learn and grow educationally, emotionally, and morally. A disruption of the school will not be tolerated.
Look, you see, that's the difference between a conservative and a progressive. I don't know that guy's politics, obviously. I don't know him from Adam. But a conservative thinks breaking of any kind of rules is by definition immoral. I don't care what the rule is. So look, there's 5 different main traits of a conservative and a liberal, and you could read into it. I don't want to go back into that giant issue. But one of the traits that conservatives find moral that liberals don't have on their list at all is following established rules and traditions. Again, it doesn't matter if the rules and traditions are correct. They just want you to follow them. They find that to be the moral thing to do. So that is why a superintendent like that says, if you are going to protest a horrible injustice, it is immoral because you're violating school rules.
Right. Well, I mean, look, I would argue that it is also immoral to tell students that they can't passionately practice political speech in regard to something that could actually affect them, like a school shooting. And I agree, a school is a place to learn and grow educationally, but it's hard to learn and grow educationally in an environment where you're concerned about mass shootings, or where there is some likelihood that a mass shooting could actually affect your campus. Look, it's on grade school campuses, there are more limitations when it comes to the First Amendment. And administrators, superintendents, they have a little more leeway in limiting that speech in order to provide a safe environment where people can comfortably learn. So I understand that. But my mind goes back to a quote that you hear time and time again when it comes to Second Amendment advocates, that the Second Amendment protects the First. And in this case, the Second Amendment is not protecting the First, actually far from it. If anyone has the audacity to ask for common sense limitations to our Second Amendment rights, well, you're not allowed to practice that kind of speech.
And look, I get it that a principal's job is to enforce order in a school. At the same time, isn't it wonderful that your students care enough that they want to participate in our democracy, and they're patriotic enough to care about what their government does and keeping themselves safe, and they're proactive? That kind of passion in students should be wildly encouraged, not discouraged.
Can you imagine also for a second if this story flipped a little and we talked about students who wanted to protest gun legislation that actually, leads to more gun control, right? So these students don't like gun control. They don't want more gun control. And in Los Angeles, California, the LAUSD superintendent says, if you students have the audacity to walk out of class to protest this gun legislation, you will get a 3-day suspension. How would conservative media handle that story?
Their heads would explode.
Exactly.
So, okay, but let's end on a fun note. The kids, if they do this, are going to get a 3-day out of school suspension. Take it.
No, but okay. Look, I think on principle, yes, take it, because practicing your First Amendment rights is important, and talking about something and protesting something that you're passionate about is important. But it does have ramifications. Like if you have a suspension on your record and you want to go to a good college, it's gonna hurt your chances.
Okay.
It is.
Look, I don't know, man. I think that's the biggest lie in high school history and American history. They always tell you it's going on your permanent record. Okay, so you're gonna be shocked to find out I got suspended in school for not listening to the teachers. I know, huge shock. And it went on, I guess, on my permanent record. I once asked someone who does acceptances for colleges. I'm like, do you ever look at suspensions? Is that a thing that's in the permanent? They're like, nope.
I know, Cenk, but like you went to college a while ago. Like things have become a lot more competitive.
It's possible, but it's usually done to scare the hell out of you. And then, so I remember when I got suspended, I'm like waiting for it. I'm like, in school or out of school? In school or out of school? Out of school is supposed to be worse. They're like, what you have done is so bad, you are going to get an out of school suspension. I was like, yes. In school suspension, you sit there miserable the whole day. I don't know what those poor kids are doing. So I'm like, look, I got to take it up a notch so I can make sure I can stay at home and have fun. So go exercise your First Amendment rights. I love that you want to get involved, and then take a nice 3-day vacation if this guy continues to be and insists on being wrong.
Yeah. All right, moving on to other news. Lawmakers in Florida are coping with a public safety concern. And if you think it might have to do with mass shootings, you're wrong. They're actually worried about sex. They're worried about porn. And so even though they have refused to even debate the issue of gun control, they have decided that they will do something about pornography. So Just to focus a little more on what Florida State House failed to do yesterday, they rejected a ban on many semi-automatic guns and large capacity magazines. But they not only rejected that ban, they rejected an opportunity to even debate the issue. Okay, lawmakers voted down a motion to consider the ban during a session that opened with a prayer for the 17 people killed by a former student last Wednesday. The vote in the Republican-dominated body was 36 to 71. Of course, 71 voting against the opportunity to debate this legislation. Now, some students have weighed in on this. One student says it shows that they don't care about us. It was just so heartbreaking to see how many voters' names were up there, especially after it was my school. It seemed almost heartless how they immediately pushed the button to say no. But one thing that Florida lawmakers are planning on protecting their constituents from is the evils of pornography. The Florida legislature is declaring pornography as a health risk.
A health risk.
A health risk.
And that's not from like 20 years ago or 200 years ago. They just did it. They just did it. They're like, oh, high capacity magazines that allows people to massacre kids at a school. No problem. We're not even gonna debate that. It's such an obvious no problem that we're not gonna debate it, okay? But porn, whoa, that's a risk to your health. You know what's a risk to your health? A bullet. That's a significant risk to your health. But no, that gets no hearing. So let's find out why they thought this is such a big risk. Republican Representative Ross Spano said that it could lead to mental and physical illness. What physical illness? I mean, the sex can lead to physical illness. You get STD or whatever. What is porn leading to? That's, I mean, maybe you hurt yourself. I don't know. Don't overdo it. Okay. And
that's what happened.
By the way, I guess this guy's also a candidate for attorney general. So if he becomes attorney general of Florida, then he gets to make sure that all of this, then he enforces these laws. So one of the things that they're doing here is they want to do education.
But what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Someone please tell me what that means. Like you're gonna sit people down and talk to them about porn? Everyone, I mean, Pornhub should be super excited. Their traffic is gonna like skyrocket now.
My favorite, yes, I don't know, like what? Just say no. Good luck with that campaign, please. I mean, you're gonna waste taxpayer dollars on just say no to porn to kids. All right, good luck, good luck. Okay, see how that turns out. Or to adults, by the way. This applies to everybody. Okay, policy changes, which means that at some point they might want to ban it. But my favorite, research. So my guess is Ross Spano is going to raise his hand right away. I'm taking the research part. I'm taking the research part. Okay, I have got to figure out what kind of illnesses I can get. Okay.
How many people have died from porn? Did 17 people just die from porn in Florida? No, 0 people died from porn in Florida.
You know how many people die after somebody watches porn? No one, because they go to sleep. Okay. Anyway, last part of this is that. He says that he's worried, and this won. It won comfortably in a voice vote. They didn't even bother taking account of it. They're like, obviously, porn is so dangerous to our health that not bullets, but porn is okay. The last part why they voted yes on this was because porn could lead to deviant sexual behavior.
Good.
So what is?
It's none of your business. It's none of your business. None of your business. You know what is your business as a lawmaker? Doing something about gun violence in your state. 17 people just got shot and killed. They didn't do. It's not like they passed this resolution 3 weeks ago. They did it on the same day that they voted against even having a discussion, a debate about gun legislation. Like, they have no shame. They have no shame. It's amazing.
Republicans led this. You're talking about deviant sexual behavior. You just had a Senate candidate in Alabama who molested 14-year-old girls in the woods. But you're saying porn is what is deviant. No, you don't. You have a president who's been accused by 19 different women of sexual harassment and sexual assault. You're not worried about actual illegal or deviant behavior that causes harm to others. But some guy or some woman likes this kind of sex or that kind of sex, and they'd like to watch it in the comfort of their own home. But you're gonna go, the guys who are against big government are gonna come into your homes, look at what you're watching on your computer, go into your phones and be like, no, I'm judging you. I'm judging you. You're immoral. You're deviant, etc. Under the guise of protecting your health.
Right. And by the way, just to be clear, there is no scientific consensus on porn being damaging to people. So, they like to cherry pick whatever they can find that meets their agenda. They're wasting their time. They are literally getting paid by taxpayers to do this kind of nonsense, to literally like, just waste their time on issues that don't really affect people. In the meantime, there's a bunch of students in their very state in tears, protesting, trying to get something substantive done, and they're just completely ignoring them.
Yep. All right, we got to take another break. Now, when we come back, I think we should do the Amazon story. And that is how they are tracking their employees. One part of it is particularly frightening. So we'll be right back. I have decided that I'm going to get ripped. Okay.
What?
Okay.
Like physically?
Yeah. Okay. What? You don't believe me?
I 100% don't believe you.
I will get so ripped, here's my prediction, that someone at TYT will say, Cenk, you've got to stop working out.
We're tired of you winning.
So you don't believe me?
Cenk, you don't have time to like do your daily duties for the main show.
Duties. You don't even have time for your daily duties. Because what you guys don't know is how great my muscles already are.
It's absolutely possible, but you can't have Leah run to the food truck to get you like 2 different types of grilled cheeses with like tater tots for lunch. Like you can't have that anymore.
Let's see what happens.
You also have to go to the gym regularly.
Let's see what happens. All I'm saying is, let's see what happens. Have I ever been wrong about a prediction? Almost never. Oh, I'm sorry, I was drinking from my aspiration.com mug. There's actually nothing in it. I just got it though, I'm really excited. You know why they sent it to me? Because they're too generous. That's the problem with Aspiration. They're giving everything away. Highest interest rates you can possibly have at a bank. I don't know if it's the highest you could possibly have, but the highest in the market right now. You could set your own fees, no monthly minimum deposit requirements. All the money, your money is kept in with clean companies, no oil companies, no private prisons, no defense contractors, and the rates are simply too good. You could use any ATM. So go check it out. All right, aspiration.com. Check it out. See if you like it. It's a great way to bank. You have peace of mind, and you get the best rates. I don't know if you'll get this mug, but I'm pretty psyched about it. I just got it today. All right, go check it out now, aspiration.com. Turks, do you guys like my live reads?
Oh yeah, they're fantastic.
You're the worst.
They're really good.
All right.
It's my favorite part of the show.
I like doing it. We're doing it asforaspiration.com, whose slogan, of course, is too generous. And I'm doing it during the commercial breaks. I think it's fun. All right, J. Thomas Gordy writes in, I'd be proud if my kids stood up for something like this and I would excuse their absence. Zappa fan says, if I got that letter, my son would protest with me by his side. Big Doc says, I'm a parent. I don't believe we should send our kids to school until they pass gun control. Call me an extremist. Okay, that is a bit much, Big Doc, but I hear you, brother. Dragon EX says, if I was a parent there, what I just heard is we're having a 3-day protest.
Someone described being a parent as living with your heart outside of your body at all times. No, but she didn't describe it in like, it didn't sound positive to me. Like, you're always worried.
Oh yeah, well I explained to my kids, I raised my voice a little bit last night, which doesn't happen often. I only raise it when I think they're about to get hurt.
Yeah.
Right? And so I explained to them, I said, what does Baba care about? Okay, make sure we don't get hurt. And so, yeah, I mean, that's obviously the downside, and I'm always worried, God forbid, if anything were to happen, right? On the other hand, nah, it's the greatest thing. No, I mean, it's both the hardest thing in the world and the greatest thing in the world. Most parents will tell you that, not all of them. Okay, all right, let's go forward. What's next?
Amazon applied 2 years ago for a patent on these wristbands that would help with the productivity of some of their warehouse employees. Now they have won this patent. It has been approved, but it's unclear whether or not they plan on implementing these wristbands for their employees. The whole point is, according to them, not to track their employees, but to help them out if, let's say for instance, they put the wrong product in the wrong bin or make some sort of mistake. It would give them a gentle vibration so they can correct the error before it's too late. That's what they're claiming. And again, it's unclear whether or not they're actually going to use this patented technology, but it seems as though they would want to if they applied 2 years ago and they waited it out to see if they could get it.
Yeah, so I had mixed feelings on this until I got to one part. So look, they want to improve efficiency so you get your boxes quicker. First of all, it's already kind of amazing how quickly we get the boxes, to be honest. But that's partly because they did efficiencies and et cetera, and they were very vigilant about it. It improves communicating with equipment in the warehouse. Well, that sounds really good. That makes sense. I'm in favor of generally improving the workplace, yada yada. Zapping workers when they're doing the wrong thing, I'm out. That's crazy. I don't care that you're calling it a gentle vibration, because you start with a gentle vibration, later it becomes less gentle. No, I'm not putting things on human beings that zaps them when they do the quote unquote wrong things. Look, I'm sure that it wasn't like some sort of evil scientist at Amazon who's like, right? It's just not the right direction to go. They got to rethink it. I don't think they've implemented it yet, but they applied for the patents.
Right,
the
yes.
patents got accepted,
right.
So they could implement it. They should rethink it, because I don't care if you call it a zap or a vibration or a shock. Don't do that. That's a really bad idea.
Right, and another concern is that it uses radio frequency and ultrasonic tracking technology. And so some privacy advocates are concerned that it could be used to possibly discriminate against certain groups of people who might take a little longer to do certain tasks. So for instance, if you're a disabled employee who might need to take a little more time to do certain things, would they use this data against you? Is there data that they will collect?
Yes, they will.
And then another concern is, let's say you are a woman who's working in the warehouse and you take a bathroom break that's a little longer, because sometimes women have things that they have to deal with that men don't have to deal with. Don't make me get specific.
I think
are you going to be punished in some way as a result of those longer bathroom breaks? Those are some of the concerns that are being voiced right now.
Strike two. I got no interest in tracking anybody's bathroom breaks. I mean, saying that an employer gets to figure out how long you're in the bathroom. Oh, no, get out of my life, get out of my life. It's just bounds of reason. That is way beyond the bounds of reason. And by the way, beware of employers bearing gifts, because sometimes they give people Fitbits and it says like, oh, that's cool, I got a Fitbit. No, it's tracking you.
No, but they're honest with their employees about why they're getting the Fitbit. So some companies want to save money with healthcare costs, and so in order to encourage their employees to stay healthy, they'll give them Fitbits and all that. So as long as they're upfront, but I get what you're saying. I mean, it gives a little too much power to the employer, and I don't need them knowing all this data about me, including how little I like to work out.
Yeah, no, but they're going to use it against you. So look, the people who start the program might start it with the best of intentions, but it doesn't matter. If you're a public corporation, you must maximize profit. So if you're not working out all the time or whatever is the allotted time that some person thinks you should work out, they're gonna note that. And then it's gonna affect their insurance rates. So if it affects their insurance rates, they're gonna take it out of you. So they're gonna start using all that information because they gotta squeeze every single penny out of you. So they will squeeze and they will use that information to squeeze, and they could sell it to other people. No,
we're like lab mice.
We are.
Yeah.
And by the way, so an expert in the field says everybody wants those Amazon jobs. If you don't want to wear the wristband, someone else will. I mean, it's like the beginning of a bad science fiction movie, or maybe a good science fiction movie, but with a bad result. So, look, I don't know that there's any way we can get in front of this or stop it, but it's our job to speak out. So I think it's a terrible idea. It might not start out in a bad way, but it'll end in a bad way. And look, one company even thought about putting chips inside the employees' hands. And they're like, no, it's for good reasons. Like, it'll make it easier at the copy machine or at the snack machine. I could still press a button that says print. I don't need a chip in my hand to do that. And by the way, when you go to buy the Coke or the Doritos or whatever, you're like, noted, he likes to eat junk food, increases insurance rates. No, I don't like the government in my life that much, and I don't like the employers in my life that much.
Yeah, you're the employer though. You don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, I know, but I don't want to know. We don't need to be that efficient.
Yeah,
I don't need to know how long.
We don't need to be that efficient.
Right? I mean, that's the reason.
No, I hear you. Like, Amazon's pretty efficient.
But yeah,
like. We're good. We're happy. Yeah. Amazon, just chill out.
Yeah. Just don't zap anyone. Don't zap. All right. What's next?
Politico and Morning Consult did a poll to see how taxpayers are feeling about these new tax cuts. Are they noticing a difference in their check? And if they have noticed a difference, how much money are they making? Well, here are the results. They found that when polling employees in general, 37% have noticed an uptick in their pay stubs, but 53% say they haven't.
Yeah, interesting.
Now let's break it down a little bit based on political ideology. Republicans were more likely to say that they noticed a change in their paycheck. So for instance, about 32% of Republicans said, yes, I have enjoyed a little bit of an increase in pay. But with Democrats, it was about 21%, with independents 22%. So the point is, the vast majority of Americans actually have not seen an increase in their pay following these massive pay cuts, tax cuts. Now, our polling shows high income earners are more likely to have noticed an increase in their paychecks. That's because those tax cuts were for those high income earners, not for the middle class, and certainly not for the working class. 45% of voters support the law enacted late last year, and 35% oppose it. The remaining 19% are undecided or have no opinion.
First of all, when I read that the high income earners have noticed the tax cuts, I literally said while reading the article, of course they have, it was intended for them. The top 1% get a tax cut of over $50,000. I think they're gonna notice the $50,000. Paul Ryan was bragging that some of his constituents got $1.25 extra per week or per month or something like that. Yeah, you might miss the $1.25 even if it exists. And the one thing that's discouraging is that we live in different realities. You either got the tax cut or you didn't, but Democrats look at it and go, I didn't get it. Republicans look at it and go, I think I got it.
I know.
And by the way, in this case, I don't know which one is right. It might be the Democrats got it and I hate Trump so much they're purposely not seeing it,
or it might
subconsciously.
Or it might be that the Republicans polled are higher earners than the Democrats that are polled, right? Like I don't.
And those red states are pretty poor, so I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. We'll see.
California and New York, pretty rich. So
yeah, that's a good point.
And independents agree with Democrats, meaning Democrats are more likely to be right, but not definitively. Anyway, so if it keeps going like those, the overall numbers of it being more popular than unpopular will flip when they realize it was just for the rich.
Right.
All right. Bye-bye. headquarters, we got a great show ahead for you guys today. We've got 2 women scientists running for office. That's awesome. And they're wonderfully progressive and they're uncorrupted. What else do you want? All right, so let me get right to it. In studio with me right now, Jess Phoenix. She is running in California's 25th district. And she is a progressive, and she's also a scientist, which is great. It'll be exciting to have people in office who know facts.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing me on, because I mean, we're really trying to get the word out that people are tired of fake news and alternative facts. People want real evidence-based policymaking, and I think that's what me, for sure, and a lot of the other scientists who are running are aiming to deliver.
So what kind of scientist are you?
So I actually specialize in volcanology, so I study active volcanoes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just that.
Right, okay. Yeah, I knew that. I knew it wasn't about the Balkans. I knew that.
Hey, you know what?
Live long and prosper.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good philosophy.
Yes. So I'm sure you get that all the time.
Yes.
Okay. You know, I saw in the notes about you that your points about Yellowstone, and I read an article about that a couple of months back, so I'm now an expert on it.
Of course.
But I wanted to run it by you. I know this is a little off topic. We'll get to politics and how you're going to fix Congress.
Okay.
But if Yellowstone blows, we're all dead, right? I mean, we're on the West Coast. We're
Actually,
gone.
on the West Coast, we'd be a little bit better off than the folks east of the volcano, just because of the way that the winds blow. That ash from previous Yellowstone eruptions has gone all the way to Washington, D.C. So the folks in D.C. would have a few problems, but us here in SoCal, we'd mostly be all right. Although it'd screw up aviation, and we'd see global temperature changes from it too. So we don't want that to happen.
No, we don't. But if, like, I read this doomsday thing that if it blows, that it covers up the sky and the temperature, and then we all die.
It's not a good thing. I mean, there were
it's some good thing if we all die.
You know, volcanoes, they don't mess around. But it's it's one of those things where it happens about every 640,000 years, and it happened about 640,000 years ago. But it's a volcano. It operates on millions of year timescales, not on lifetimes for people. So the odds of it blowing on any given day that any of us or anybody watching is alive are slim to none.
But if it does happen, you need Jess Phoenix in office to make sure that she could at least help, okay? Yeah. Although these days they'd be like, a scientist, what would you know? Okay, so speaking of which, why run for office? Why politics?
Well, it was really just seeing that Trump is so into promoting things that are just not true, and then realizing that the guy I'm running against is Steve Knight. He's one of the low-key bad guys in the Trump administration. Well, just in Congress, he was there before Trump, but he is on the House Science Committee, and he's a climate science denier. In addition to voting against equal pay for women, against LGBTQ rights, he voted against allowing people who were victims of those wildfires to deduct that from their tax returns. In California, that's not a good plan. So realizing that we have somebody who's running, or he's just voting so against the interests of everybody, you combine that with the anti-science, anti-facts, that basically mood that's swept Washington, and I'm like, we are not going to have any funding to do disease research, to do climate science, to basically deal with automation and how our population's going to survive with all the changes of the 21st century. So I said we need tech literate people who understand facts.
All right, sounds wonderful to me. What else is in your platform? What are you fighting for?
So big point for me is actually about gun reform, and that's I was a 17-year-old high school student down the road from Columbine, dating a guy who went to Columbine when the shootings happened. So it's a very personal thing, and it is beyond time to do something about this. And then being somebody who's taught in classrooms, I've been on the other end of that and thought, gosh, I really hope one of my students doesn't come in and start shooting. So I think that we really need to make sure that we do all the common sense gun reforms you hear, about banning bump stocks and assault weapons and closing background check loopholes, not allowing concealed carry reciprocity. But then we've got to fund the CDC, because you cannot fix what you can't measure. And if we don't have good data on the gun violence epidemic, not just mass shootings, but suicides and domestic violence, we don't know what we need to do to fix the problem. So that's a big one for me.
Yep. How about campaign finance reform?
Oh, huge, huge. That is what I've learned from running. I've been in the race since April last year. It's a long time. And one of the biggest barriers to entry into politics for people is the fact that you gotta have a wealthy donor network. You gotta pay to play. And I'm running a grassroots campaign because that's not what I want to be standing for. I want to stand for individual people and say, oh, you gave me $5? That has as much weight as somebody who gives me the max, which is $2,700. And that's the sort of example we need. We need that in Congress if we're going to overturn Citizens United and publicly fund elections.
And do you think we should do an amendment? What's your sense of what the answer is?
Well, so I want Congress to actually overturn Citizens United by legislating that, and then I mean, because the court right now we've got it more stacked towards the conservative side. So I doubt the remedy will come right away through the courts, and I don't think we're going to see much from the executive branch right now, sadly.
No, I suspect not.
Yeah, so we need to get enough Congress people in office who are not beholden to big donors that we can actually create a legislative solution, and yeah.
Okay, I want to show everybody Jess's links, and remember, always super easy to click in the description box below if you're watching later on YouTube or on Facebook. There in the comment section, just go and click. If you want to take big money out of politics, small donors are going to have to put progressives into office, and then they could change the law and say, hey, why don't our representatives actually represent us instead of their donors? And end the private financing of elections.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's keep going on your policy proposals. So in terms of immigration, what's your point of view there?
Well, it's super personal to me. My husband, Carlos, is the son, first-generation American, son of a legal immigrant and an undocumented immigrant who his mom received amnesty under Reagan. So all of my in-law side of the family is affected by what we do with immigration. And I speak Spanish too, so I've been really working hard to go out into the Latino community because the majority of immigrants in my particular district are Latino immigrants. And I've talked to people and I've heard what they've told me, and we really would be tearing apart families if we don't act on immigration. And if we've got to pass a clean DREAM Act, so no strings attached, none of this, well, increased border security and the DACA. No. We have to do a clean DREAM Act. Get these young American citizens to have full citizenship. We need that because they have everything but the title right now. They've been educated here. We've invested money into them. It's time to make them full members of our community. And then we've got to work on DAPA, the action for their parents. And then we've got to create a pathway to citizenship for all of the undocumented folks who are here. And obviously they have to meet certain criteria. They have to have clean records and have paid their taxes and pay a fee. But we need that pathway. And it shouldn't be a single party thing. This should be bipartisan. And it's actually kind of a disgrace right now that it's not.
Yeah, I was gonna say good luck with that, but you never know. Hey, look, the person who gave your mother-in-law amnesty was Reagan.
Exactly.
And that was actually actual amnesty.
Yeah.
It was called amnesty because it was amnesty. Not now, like if you do a pathway to citizenship that takes like 12 or 14 years, almost twice as long as indentured servitude, they call that amnesty. That's not amnesty. Reagan actually said, okay, you guys have, you're in, that's it, you're done. So it is amazing how many different things have touched your life personally. Anyway, so look, in California, you got runoffs, you got a primary. So Steve Knight, being the incumbent and Republican in that district, is likely to make the runoff. So who are the other Democrats in the race that you are in effect running against to go up against Steve Knight?
Well, there are a couple of others. Actually, there's I think 7 or 9. It keeps changing, day to day. But there's a few of us who are more serious. But as far as the field goes, obviously everybody's objective is to get rid of Knight. But I am the most progressive of the group. In terms of healthcare for all and the climate positions and what we should do about guns. And so that's really how I've been trying to differentiate myself. And saying that, I'm not taking money from big donors. Like my whole network is grassroots. So I have the most individual donors of anybody in the field. I think we're over 5,000 now individual donors. And the average donation, it was $44 at our last FEC filing. It's now down to $32. So it sounds funny.
Congratulations.
I know, right? It's going smaller. But actually we're getting more individual donations just for lower dollar values. So it's really working. And it just shows me that there really is a lot of support for this movement that we're working on, which is, hey, evidence in government.
Have any of your Democratic opponents accused you of being too progressive?
No. No, they haven't.
Okay.
And and that's the thing is I can back up where I stand with evidence. And so that's what I'm like, yeah, you know what? I have a reason for thinking everything that I believe.
So healthcare for all, does that mean Medicare for all?
Medicare for all, yep. And I like that model. And I think the approach of using the Medicare administration, system that we have now that's a really cost-effective way of delivering healthcare to a lot of people. So I really like that as a moving forward policy.
All right, one last fun thing. Apparently, you got a bunch of Star Trek actors on your side.
I do.
So I love Star Trek, and I've interviewed a whole set of people from the different series. So who do you have, and why are they animated about California's 25th district?
Well, I think the film industry plays a big role. The 25th is northern LA County. It's like the burbs and then the rural parts of LA that nobody knows about. But a lot of people shoot film out there, and it is a really important area for LA because it is so, it's such an economic driver in terms of the film industry and manufacturing and aerospace. So we're like basically the neighbors of all these folks. But I've had Tim Russ supporting, Bob Picardo, John Billingsley, and the interesting thing is it's a lot of the women of Star Trek too. Marina Sirtis, Gates McFadden, and then some of the newer series folks. Mary Cheffo, I think I'm saying her last name right. She's on Star Trek Discovery, and she just recently started following the campaign on Twitter. So I'm hoping maybe she wants to come on board. But the cool thing is it's a lot of the different series of people who are really getting in.
I'm super old school, so I've lost track of the newer guys. So any Vulcans in the crowd?
Tim Russ, he was on. I'm gonna get this wrong because I haven't seen his one. I think it was Voyager.
Trump.
I think it was Voyager. I know Tim knows. Tim knows. But I'm better at The Next Generation and Discovery, the newest one. Those are the ones that I've paid the most attention to. So I'm catching up on all the rest.
I saw every single Next Generation episode.
Cool.
Does anybody ever think that you are the daughter of Beverly Crusher?
No, but she's awesome. And Will Wheaton's been supporting the campaign too. I can't forget him. Can't forget Will. So
okay, and you know what? Will Wheaton once came on the Young Turks, did an interview, and I ran into a guy the other day, and he said that what changed him from a conservative to a progressive was listening to Will Wheaton in that interview, and it sort of led him down a road of realizing, hey, you know what? This isn't cool. This isn't right, and this is the better way to go. So I hope that people see the Star Trek actors in your ads, and it opens their mind a little bit, and most importantly that they are open to the science, the data, the facts that you are bringing. And it's absolutely refreshing to have a scientist run for office and be a diehard progressive. And I believe that in a wave year, man, anything is possible, and certainly in a part that's a little north of LA, enormously possible. So Jess Phoenix, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
It was great.
All right, everybody, remember links down below. Okay, go donate or volunteer right now. Jess2018.com. All right, we'll be right back. we're back at Rebel headquarters. We have an amazing new guest for you guys, Jess Phoenix. What? So we decided to do 2 segments. As the other guest that was coming in had traffic problems, so I might have made that up. But anyway, she's not here and Jess is here. So I thought, let's keep going, let's keep going. So in the break, I found out all these amazing things about you. So I wanted to share it with everyone. So Jess, of course, running for office in California's 25th district. So you're also on Discovery and Science channels?
Yeah, I do shows for them. I did a series for Discovery 2 years ago now called Trailblazers. That's on Amazon, and it's, we went to a volcano in Ecuador and did some scientific measurements there, and we're trying to figure out how to predict volcanic eruptions. That's the holy grail of volcano science. So I did that series for them, and then I was on Shark Week last time. So I'm hoping Donald Trump knows who I am because he likes Shark Week, I guess.
Oh, totally.
So,
you should have done some dig on Donald Trump. He would have been like, this Jess Phoenix is the worst, then you're guaranteed to win.
Yeah, but you see I have a shark necklace.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, sharks are one of my things, so I love them. But and then I was also, I'm on the Science Channel series that's ongoing called What on Earth? And yeah, I was just on one of their episodes like last week, I think.
So you like sharks, Star Trek, and volcanoes.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got my son's vote.
Okay, that's cool, I'll take it.
like all the coolest things in the world to him. And plus, oh my God, the other thing you could have done to get under Donald Trump's skin while he was watching Shark Week and eating cheeseburgers in bed is mention to him that your parents were FBI agents.
Yes, yes.
Oh, so how do we know you're not a plant?
Well, my parents are Republicans, so it'd have gone horribly wrong if that was the case.
But all the ones he wants to fire are also Republicans. Remember, Mueller's a Republican, Christopher Wray's a Republican,
Comey's a Republican,
Rod Rosenstein's not in the FBI, but Deputy Attorney General, Republican.
Yeah. It's where the party is now versus where it was when my parents were in the bureau is just night and day. I mean, the Republicans are no longer the same animal. So, but my parents are they retired. But my mom was an expert on terrorism and foreign counterintelligence, and and my dad started out in white collar crime and then ended up doing cybercrime stuff. So. Yeah, our dinner table conversations were awesome.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna ask, like, how badass is that, and how often did you pull that card at school? Like, no, it's cool, you can try to bully me, but my parents are kind of FBI agents, so good luck with that.
Well, when I was 8, we moved from DC, they were stationed in DC, we moved out to Littleton, Colorado, and so I was the new kid. When you're 8 years old, 3rd grade, new kid, it sucks. And so I said, can I bring my parents to show and tell? And the school let me. So my parents came and they handcuffed all the kids in the class. They let us try on their bulletproof vests. Like, it was great. Okay. So I got spared a little teasing at that point because of it.
Okay, all right, good. I remember there was a bully in our school, in elementary school, who pretended that his dad was the head of the FBI and his uncle was the head of the mob.
Okay,
and I was
that works well.
I'm like, that's just not true. Okay, but if I tried that on you, you'd be like, no, wait. My dad will handcuff you in class.
No, actually, legitimately. And when I would walk to school, if it was my birthday or something, my dad would be driving by in a bureau car, which they're unmarked, but they have loudspeakers in them. And he sometimes would be like, "Happy birthday!" I'm like, "Dad, you're embarrassing me." This was in high school and stuff.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, parents, they have different ways to torture you when they're in the bureau.
Right. And which election did they rig?
Oh man, no, I think they were both out before all the real contentious ones happened. Yeah.
Oh no, I have just accidentally started a conspiracy theory. When you win, they're like, ah!
Yeah, it was all that.
Parents were retired FBI agents. Anyway, so let's talk about how you're gonna win. So Steve Knight's the incumbent there in that district. Now, it turns out pretty vulnerable, right? So how much did he win by last time, and what's the dynamics there?
So our district, it's historically been known as a real conservative one, and it's the only Republican-held district in LA County still. And Hillary won by 7%.
Oh,
and we now have 10,000 more Democrats registered than Republicans. So the odds are in our favor because Knight only hung on by a little under 6%. So this is actually a very flippable seat. And the way we do that is we have to elevate Knight's profile. We've got to make him somebody who people know about. Everybody goes, who? They think Steve King, in Iowa. I'm like, no, Steve Knight. And Knight is, he is one of the worst. He's anti-LGBTQ, like I said, anti-equal pay for women. Like, he's been voting against progress for the whole time he's been in office. This is only his second term too, so we can get him out.
Do you know what percentage of the time he votes with Trump?
98%.
But only 98%. It's in LA County.
Yeah.
LA, you gonna stand for that? Come on. So on the other hand, you have some pretty strong positions on climate change.
Yes.
What is that?
So I actually think that we need to be prioritizing it. Of course, we need to get back into the Paris Accord ASAP. And with volcano science, I also do environmental science. I founded an environmental nonprofit, and we teach students how to do science research, and we study the environments of the planet. And we work out in the Mojave here in California, so desert 2.5 hours from here. And through that, I've seen that what we really need is scientists talking to each other better. So that's how we solve the climate issues that we're seeing in the 21st century. That means we fund the National Science Foundation, we fund NOAA and NASA to do climate studies, and then we actually spark innovation by saying, hey, let's make my district, the 25th, a global hub for green tech research and development, because that is going to have the way of the future, basically. If we can have net zero manufacturing, net zero power production, or even negative emissions, like they've got a plant in Iceland now that's negative emissions. And if we can kind of seed that sort of innovation, that's our way forward. And of course, if we don't deal with this, climate change is the greatest threat to national security that we're going to see in the next 50 years, because it's a threat multiplier. It empowers terrorists, it basically drives migration patterns, and it's going to, cause food security issues all over the place when we can't grow things where we used to.
Or we start running out of water like they did in Cape Town.
Yes, which has not been talked about nearly enough. That is appalling, the lack of coverage we've had about that. That's a major city.
Yeah, we just covered it for the second time this week.
You guys do a good job with it.
Yes, thank you. So it's just real quick, I think if Republicans or independents are watching, they might think, what do you mean climate change empowers terrorists?
Yeah, so whenever you've got resource scarcity, it allows terrorist groups to act with more efficacy. So if you've got, say, sea levels rising, people pushed out of work, that sort of thing, and you have a terrorist group saying, we can make your lives better if you follow our movement, you follow our ideology, or if they're controlling resource deployment, like if they have access to a river and that's your only water source, or if they control the food supply routes, a lot of people are going to be hurting if terrorists are able to use the changing climate conditions to put the squeeze on their communities more.
And there's a theory that the Syrian civil war, whether it was started by that or not, but it was certainly exacerbated by some of those same issues that you're talking about, and the migration patterns, and it was greatly destabilizing. And then obviously it turned into a mess with ISIS, et cetera.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a little worried about your ability to win when you use words like efficacy. There's some chance you're a little too smart for Congress. I'm not sure it's allowed.
I can go simple. I can throw a snowball back at senators when they bring them onto the floor. That's all right.
That would be awesome.
Or baking soda volcano day for those who don't understand. I mean, whatever works, right? But no, I think I'm actually really excited about it, because I think we're going to see a fabulous blue wave. I think we are gearing up for a huge change at the ballot boxes, and I'm so encouraged, because I've been doing a lot of getting out and meeting people and talking to people. I have 11-year-olds who are supporting my campaign, who are volunteering their time to help me communicate to the younger folks. And yeah, they can't vote, but they're the ones who have to live with the consequences of what we do now. So that's who I'm actually running for.
Put Jess Phoenix into office, and she will get into a snowball fight with Senator Inhofe. Okay, she will fire back. Okay, phasers on stun in the beginning.
Yes.
Okay. So everybody, check out the links one more time. Jess Phoenix running in California's 25th district, jess2018.com. Make sure that you volunteer if you're in the district, because volunteers are more important than anything else. But small dollar donations are absolutely needed to beat big corporate money. And wouldn't it be amazing if we had this brilliant scientist in Congress? Jess, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Cenk. This is great.
Okay, this time, for real, we're done. Okay, all right, we'll see you in the post game.